The sky above the Galactic Council's capital was alive with fire. Thousands of ships filled the void, dark silhouettes against the brilliant light of stars, and beyond them, advancing relentlessly, came the Void Harvester Armada. Their shapes were cold and unfeeling, their weapons cutting through space like blades of light. Silence followed them, a silence that whispered of annihilation. Yet humanity stood ready. Captain Daniel Hayes looked across the fleet. Humans and aliens alike prepared for the battle to come. Each ship bore scars of previous fights, yet the crews were unbroken. Troops checked their weapons one last time. Engineers double-checked every shield and cannon. Pilots tightened harnesses and tested controls. For the first time, the galaxy was united not by fear, but by purpose. The first clash. The harvesters struck first. Beams of destructive energy tore across space, striking ships with terrifying precision. Explosions erupted, scattering debris. Entire squadrons were vaporized in seconds, yet the human fleet did not retreat. "Hold formation," Hayes shouted over the comms. "Remember what we trained for. Adapt, survive, protect one another." Humans led the counterattack. Their ships moved with daring maneuvers, dodging beams that would have destroyed any other vessel. Missiles streaked across the void, tearing into harvester hulls. Humans targeted key nodes, communications hubs, and weapon arrays, using their enemies' own formations against them. Council ships, inspired by the humans, followed closely. Slowly the tide began to turn, not entirely, but enough to keep the enemy at bay. Battle on the ground, while fleets clashed in orbit. Human and alien soldiers descended to planets under attack. The first wave landed on a colony world called Lyra. The ground shook as harvester drones swarmed, metal claws tearing through streets. Panic spread among the colonists. Then humans appeared. Armored soldiers moved like shadows, using the terrain to their advantage. They turned ruins into traps, ambushed drones in alleyways, and coordinated strikes with precision. Aliens, initially cautious, adapted to human methods. Together they became a force neither the harvesters nor any other species had ever seen. A young human soldier, Lieutenant Mara Chen, led a squad through a collapsing building. She shouted orders, guiding her team through rubble, and every action was calculated to save civilians. When a drone lunged at a child, Mara leaped, firing a pulse cannon that tore it apart. Colonists watched in awe, realizing that these DEATHWORLDers fought not just for victory, but for life itself. The human strategy Captain Hayes had a plan, a risky one. The harvesters were vast and adaptive. Conventional tactics alone would never defeat them. The humans devised a bold strategy, a coordinated assault, combining orbital strikes, ground attacks, and deliberate sacrifices to disrupt enemy formations. "Some ships may be lost," Hayes warned. "But every second we buy will allow the rest of the fleet to strike with full force. Every act of courage matters." The alien commanders hesitated. Sacrifices were not their way. But the humans' example inspired them. Slowly, they agreed. Sacrifice and courage. As the battle reached its peak, human ships charged into the heart of the harvester fleet. Missiles struck first, breaking through layers of defenses. Then, in a daring move, smaller human ships maneuvered directly into enemy formations, using their own hulls to block beams aimed at vital council vessels. Explosions lit the void. Smoke and debris trailed through space as humans risked everything to create openings. On the ground, human soldiers did the same. They held choke points covering retreating civilians. They fought in numbers far smaller than the enemy, but leveraged terrain, traps, and creativity. Every act of bravery became a chain reaction, inspiring allies and striking fear into the harvesters' automated systems. Turning the tide, the battle seemed endless. Hours stretched into days. Casualties mounted, yet humanity's determination never wavered. Captain Hayes coordinated attacks, rallying ships and troops, sharing every observation with allies. Then, at a critical moment, the humans struck the central command nodes of the Harvester Armada. Orbital strikes, ground sabotage, and direct assaults converged. With each node destroyed, the enemy lost coordination. Their fleet wavered, their drones faltered, and for the first time the unstoppable force began to crumble. Council ships, inspired by the humans' courage, pressed the attack. Alien soldiers on the planets adapted fully to the humans' methods. Together, the united forces pushed the harvesters back. The final stand, the last and largest harvester vessel, loomed over the capital world. It was enormous, bristling with weapons, impervious to conventional fire. Captain Hayes knew that ending this threat required a final act of courage. "We go in together," he told his senior officers. "Every ship, every soldier, this is our stand. Today we protect the galaxy or it falls." The human fleet charged. They drew the enemy's fire, maneuvered into blind spots, and struck at the vessel's critical points. Ground troops synchronized with orbital attacks, sabotaging key machinery. Explosions tore across the harvester vessel. Metal groaned. Energy shields flickered and died. Then, with a final coordinated strike, the massive enemy ship broke apart in a flash of light. The remaining drones, disconnected from command, faltered and retreated. For the first time in eons, the Void Harvesters had been defeated. A galaxy united. The silence after the battle was profound. No ships moved, no weapons fired. Survivors looked around, exhausted, battered, but alive. Human soldiers helped the injured. Alien commanders tended to civilians. For the first time, victory did not feel like triumph over one's enemies, but like salvation for all. Captain Hayes stood on the observation deck of a council station, looking out at the stars. They were still the same, but something had changed. The galaxy had learned a lesson it had forgotten. Survival was not only about technology or speed or power. It was about courage, adaptability, and unity. And humans, the DEATHWORLDers, had reminded them of that truth. New heroes, stories of the humans spread across systems. Children in distant worlds learned their names: Daniel Hayes, Mara Chen, Sergeant Malik, and countless others. Statues were built, songs were sung, but most importantly, respect was earned. For the first time, humans were seen not as strangers or dangerous outsiders, but as heroes. Their strength came not only from their bodies or weapons, but from their hearts, their determination to stand against overwhelming odds and fight for others. Aliens who had once doubted humanity now sought their counsel. Scientists shared technology, soldiers trained together. The bond formed in fire at Orthea, Thalara, and Solara had become unbreakable. The cost of survival. The victory came at a cost. Ships were lost, soldiers fallen, worlds scarred. The galaxy would never forget the sacrifices. Yet through that pain, a lesson endured. Even in the face of destruction, courage and determination could prevail. The harvesters were defeated not by the strongest, but by those willing to stand, to fight, and to protect others at all costs. Captain Hayes addressed the combined fleets. "We do not fight for glory. We fight for life, for hope, for the galaxy itself. Today we have survived. Tomorrow we rebuild, and we will never stop answering a call for help no matter where it comes from." A new dawn. As the last harvester ships retreated into the void, a new era began. The Galactic Council worked to rebuild shattered worlds, strengthen defenses, and foster alliances. Humans were no longer unknown outsiders. They had proven that even from a small, harsh planet, beings could rise to greatness. They had shown that survival depended not only on strength, but on courage, creativity, and the will to protect others. And as they returned to their fleet, heading back toward their homeworlds or to distant colonies, one truth was clear to everyone in the galaxy. Humanity had answered the final SOS, and in doing so, they became the hope of the stars. The alien race known as the Varkesh had ruled many star systems for centuries. They were tall, powerful, and proud of their hunting traditions. To them, hunting was not only a sport but also a way of proving strength and honor. Every young Varkesh dreamt of joining the great hunts, where prey from across the galaxy was released into vast arenas, forests, or wild planets. Those who survived and brought back trophies were respected. Those who failed were forgotten. Among all prey, the Varkesh had a special interest in humans. Humans were small compared to most alien races. They lacked natural armor, claws, or advanced technology of their own. They were easy to capture, easy to control, and, at least in the minds of the Varkesh, easy to hunt. To the hunters, humans were simply prey to test skill, not opponents worthy of fear. On this day, a new group of humans had been brought to the hunting world called Gorath 9. The planet was wild, with endless forests, sharp mountains, and rivers that glowed under alien moons. The air was heavy with mist, and the cries of strange animals echoed through the valleys. Gorath 9 was not a place of safety. It was a place built for the hunt. The Varkesh gathered in their great camp at the edge of the forest. Fires burned in iron pits, casting shadows across the alien banners. Hunters stood tall in armor made of black metal and scaled leather, their helmets carved with marks of past victories. They prepared their energy rifles, curved blades, and tracking devices. Around them growled their hunting beasts, four-legged creatures with armored hides and glowing eyes. The hunters laughed as they checked their weapons, eager for the sport ahead. High above the camp, a great ship released cages that fell into the forest. Inside those cages were the humans. When the cages struck the ground, the doors opened, and the humans stumbled out into the wild. Some were soldiers, some were workers, some were ordinary people taken from Earth or colonies. None of them had weapons. The only things they had were their hands, their feet, and their will to survive. The hunters always gave their prey a small head start. To the Varkesh, it was tradition to let the fear grow before the chase began. A deep horn sounded through the camp, and the hunters roared with excitement. The hunt had begun. Mara, a young woman from Earth, ran with 3 others through the thick forest. She had once been a soldier before her capture, but that seemed like years ago now. Her clothes were torn and her face was marked with dirt. The forest floor was slippery, and the roots caught her feet as she moved. Behind her, she could already hear the distant cries of the hunting beasts. "Keep moving," Mara told the others. Her voice was steady, though her heart pounded. "Don't stop. Don't look back." One of the men stumbled, breathing hard. "They'll catch us." "We can't outrun them forever." Mara pulled him up. "We don't need forever. We just need to stay alive a little longer." She looked around the forest as they ran. The trees were huge, their branches twisting like arms. Strange insects glowed on the bark, lighting their path. In the distance, the faint red lights of alien drones floated through the air. The hunters were already tracking them. Back at the Varkesh camp, the hunt leader, Commander Dravak, stood on a high platform. His armor was decorated with the skulls of many prey. He raised his clawed hand and the hunters fell silent. "Today," Dravak declared, "we hunt the humans again. They are weak, but they are clever. Do not underestimate them, but do not respect them either. They are prey, nothing more. We shall take their skins, their bones, and their fear as our trophies." The hunters cheered. The beasts howled. The horn sounded again, and the hunters entered the forest in groups. Their footsteps shook the ground. Their voices carried through the trees. The hunt was spreading. Mara and her group reached a small stream. The water glowed faintly blue under the alien sky. She knelt quickly, pressing her hand into the mud. "Cover your tracks," she whispered. "Step in the water, move along it, then climb out downstream. It may slow them." The others obeyed. They waded through the cold stream, leaving the muddy bank behind. Mara knew it would not fool the hunters for long, but every delay mattered. Above them, a drone floated closer, its red eye scanning the ground. Mara grabbed a rock and threw it with all her strength. The rock struck the drone and it spun before crashing into the water. Sparks hissed. The humans froze, waiting for the sound of hunters. The forest remained quiet, for now. Hours passed. The humans moved deeper into the wild, but the hunters were always near. The sound of horns echoed through the trees, followed by the howls of beasts. Sometimes the hunters fired shots into the forest, not to kill, but to frighten. They wanted the prey to panic, to scatter, to be easier to catch. But Mara refused to panic. As night fell, she found a hollow tree where they could rest. The others collapsed inside, exhausted. Mara stayed awake, watching the forest. She could see the lights of the hunters moving in the distance like red stars among the trees. She thought of Earth, of the cities she would never see again, of the people she had lost. Her fists tightened. The Varkesh called them prey, but prey had teeth. Prey could fight back. She did not know how yet, but she knew one thing. She would not let herself be taken easily. Far away, another hunting group entered the forest. They followed the signals of their drones, laughing as they closed in on their prey. But as they reached a clearing, the laughter stopped. The clearing was empty. No humans. No tracks, nothing. The hunters spread out, confused. One checked his scanner. Another held his beast on a chain. The air was heavy and silent. Then the signal on the scanner flickered, then died. The red eye of the drone went dark. "What is this?" One hunter growled. Before anyone could answer, the forest itself seemed to close in. A shadow moved among the trees. The hunters raised their weapons, but no shot was fired. Moments later, the clearing was empty again. The hunters had vanished without a sound. Back at the camp, when their signals went silent, the commanders frowned. It was rare for hunters to fall so quickly, but they did not worry. To them, it was probably a mistake or perhaps a broken device. They did not yet know that something had begun to change. The humans were no longer just running. The hunt had begun, but not the way the Varkesh expected. The morning light rose over the forests of Gorath 9, turning the mist into a golden haze. Birds with glass-like wings flew between the trees, calling with sharp cries that echoed across the valley. The alien planet seemed calm, but beneath the beauty was danger, both for the prey and for the hunters. The Varkesh hunters began their second day of the hunt with confidence. Their campfires still burned, and their horns echoed through the forest. They laughed as they checked their weapons and prepared their beasts. To them, the hunt was still just a game, and humans were still just prey. But there was unease, too. The night before, one hunting group had gone silent. No signals, no return. The commanders explained it away, perhaps a broken scanner, perhaps an accident in the forest. Yet whispers moved among the younger hunters. The Varkesh were proud, but even pride could not hide fear forever. Commander Dravak stood tall in the center of the camp. His armor gleamed in the rising light, marked with old scars of battles long past. He raised his voice so all hunters could hear. Today we continue the hunt. Do not let your minds weaken because of one missing group. Humans are weak and their tricks are small. We are hunters. We are the Varkesh. Nothing can challenge us. The hunters roared in agreement, beating their fists against their armor. The beasts growled and snapped their jaws, eager to chase. For a moment, the fear seemed to vanish. Pride returned to their hearts. But far away, in the shadows of the forest, humans were already changing the game. Mara crouched near a fallen log, her sharp eyes scanning the terrain. She had not slept much, but her mind was clear. Around her, 3 others gathered. Jalen, a tall man who once worked as an engineer, Ruth, a young nurse, and Ben, a miner with strong arms. They were tired and hungry, but they were alive. We can't just keep running, Mara whispered. They'll track us down one by one. We have to fight back. Ben shook his head. Fight back with what? We have no guns, no blades. They have beasts, rifles, everything. Mara looked at him, her expression firm. Then we use what we have. We use the forest. We use our minds. They think we are only prey. Let's show them they are wrong. The others were silent for a moment. Then Jalen nodded slowly. I can work with broken machines. If we can bring down one of their drones, I may find a way to use it. Mara's lips tightened into a small smile. Then that's our first step. We turn their tools against them. By midday, the hunters had spread through the forest. Their scanners blinked with signals of human movement. Some groups fired into the trees, forcing the prey to scatter. Others released their beasts, which ran swift and silent, sniffing for human scent. The hunters joked and boasted, claiming they would bring back the first kill. One group of 4 hunters followed a signal deep into the forest. Their leader carried a spear with glowing edges. The others held rifles. A beast ran ahead, sniffing the ground, pulling on its chain. Suddenly the beast stopped. It sniffed again, then growled low in its throat. The hunters raised their weapons, scanning the trees. "Show yourself," one shouted. His voice rang through the forest, but no answer came. Then, from above, a rope of vines swung down. The beast leapt, but the vines tangled around its legs, pulling it into the air. It roared in anger, twisting helplessly, before the hunters could react. Stones fell from the branches above, striking their helmets. One rifle fell to the ground with a crack. Another hunter stumbled, his scanner crashing into the mud. The forest was alive with sudden movement, but no humans appeared in sight. The hunters fired into the trees, energy bolts cutting leaves and bark, but there was nothing to hit. When the smoke cleared, 2 hunters were gone, vanished. Only their broken weapons remained on the ground. The remaining hunters shouted in confusion, calling on their radios for help. No answer came, just static. Fear touched their hearts for the first time. Back in the camp, Commander Dravak frowned as the reports came in. Another group silent. Another lost signal. He gripped the railing of his platform, his claws scratching the metal. "This is no accident," he growled. "Something is happening in the forest." His second-in-command Vora tilted her head. She was younger but sharp-minded. "Perhaps the humans are learning. Perhaps they are using traps." Dravak snarled. "Impossible. Humans are clever, yes, but they are still prey. Prey does not defeat hunters." Vora did not answer, but her eyes showed doubt. Meanwhile, Mara and her group hid in a cave behind a waterfall. The sound of rushing water covered their voices. Jalen sat on the ground, his hands working quickly over a broken drone they had captured. Its red eye flickered weakly. "I can use this," he said. "Not as a weapon, but as a distraction. I can make it give false signals. That will confuse their scanners." Mara leaned closer. "Good. Do it. Every minute we buy keeps us alive." Ruth sat with her arms around her knees. "How long can we fight them like this? There's so many and we're so few." Mara's eyes hardened. "We fight as long as we must. If we fall fighting. But if we survive, maybe we can do more than survive. Maybe we can win." Her words filled the cave with quiet strength. Even Ruth, tired and afraid, felt a spark of hope. The next night, the forest shook again with the sound of the hunt. But this time, the hunters were not laughing. They moved cautiously, their rifles ready, their beasts uneasy. They found broken drones, false signals, empty camps where humans should have been. They found trails that led to nowhere, footprints that ended at rivers, and traps made of stone and vine. And again, hunters began to vanish. One patrol walked into the swamp and never returned. Another was lured by a false signal, only to find nothing but darkness and silence. The whispers spread faster than fire. Hunters spoke to each other in low voices. Some said the humans had allied with the spirits of the forest. Others said shadows moved among the trees, faster than any human could. Commander Dravak tried to crush the fear. He ordered more horns, more beasts, more fire. But even he could not deny the truth. The humans were no longer running. They were fighting. At dawn, Mara climbed a high ridge, looking over the valley below. She could see the glow of Varkesh campfires far away, and the red lights of drones searching the skies. She closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the wind against her face. The hunters had come to chase them for sport. But now, the hunters were nervous. Now the hunters were watching the shadows. Mara whispered to herself, "They think they are hunters, but soon they will learn fear." And in the forests of Gorath 9, fear was already spreading among the predators. The hunt was no longer one-sided. It was changing. The forests of Gorath 9 no longer echoed only with the horns of the hunters. Now they carried new sounds, cries of beasts caught in traps, the crash of broken drones, and the sudden silence when hunting groups failed to return. The Varkesh had always believed the hunt was a game they controlled. They set the rules. They chose the prey. They claimed the glory. But as days passed, those rules began to break. Hunters vanished. Signals failed. Fear crept into their voices when they gathered at night. For the first time in memory, the hunters were not certain who controlled the hunt. Mara stood in the shadow of an ancient tree, her eyes scanning the valley below. The humans had moved deeper into the wild, far from the main Varkesh camp. Around her stood Jalen, Ruth, Ben, and more survivors who had joined them. Their faces were tired, but their eyes burned with determination. She spoke in a low voice, steady and strong. "We are not running anymore. Running only makes us weak. Fighting makes us strong. The Varkesh think they are hunters, but we will teach them they are wrong. From now on, every step they take in this forest will be filled with fear." The group listened, and for the first time they believed. Mara was not just another survivor now, she was a leader. Jalen knelt beside the broken drone he had been repairing. Its red eye glowed faintly as he worked with pieces of wire and crystal. "It's ready," he said at last. "I've changed the signals. It will show them prey where there is none. If we use this well, we can lead them into traps." Mara nodded. "Good, place it near the river cliffs. When they come, we'll be ready." Ben tightened his grip on a heavy branch he had shaped into a club. "It feels strange," he admitted. "Fighting hunters with sticks and stones. But maybe that's enough." Mara looked at him with sharp eyes. It is not the weapon that matters. It is how you use it. That night, a group of Varkesh hunters followed the false signal of Jalen's drone. They moved carefully, weapons raised, their beasts sniffing the air. The red light of the drone floated ahead of them like a guide. "This way," their leader growled. "The humans are near." But as they reached the cliffside, the ground beneath them shifted. Hidden ropes snapped free. Stones rolled. The cliff gave way with a thunderous crash. The hunters shouted in shock as the earth crumbled beneath their feet. 2 fell into the river below. 1 dropped his weapon before tumbling down. Only 1 remained, clinging to the edge. He screamed for help, but shadows moved above him. Humans appeared, their faces grim. The hunter's last sight before falling was a human handprint carved into the rock, a mark left to remind him who had turned the hunt. By morning, the story of the lost group reached Commander Dravak. He paced inside his tent, his armor clattering with every step. His second-in-command Vora stood nearby, her face calm but her voice sharp. "They are using tactics," she said. "They are building traps, confusing our scanners, striking at night. These are not the actions of prey. These are the actions of warriors." Dravak slammed his fist against the table. "Do not speak such words. They are weak. They cannot stand against us." Vora's eyes narrowed. "And yet they are standing." Dravak growled, but he had no answer. In the forest, Mara's group grew stronger. Every day, more humans joined them. Those who escaped other hunters, those who hid alone and were found. Mara welcomed them all. She gave them hope, and in return they gave her loyalty. Ruth treated the injured using herbs and leaves she had learned to gather. Jalen built more tricks from broken machines. Ben and others trained with spears carved from branches, clubs of stone, and stolen Varkesh weapons. When hunters marched into the forest now, they did not find weak prey. They found resistance. One night, a patrol of Varkesh returned to camp carrying not trophies but wounds. Their armor was scratched, their weapons stolen, their beasts dead. Around the fire, other hunters stared in disbelief. The pride of the Varkesh was cracking. The turning point came during a great chase. A band of hunters had cornered a group of humans near the river. They raised their rifles, certain of victory. The humans seemed trapped between the cliffs and the rushing water. But then Mara gave the signal. Hidden ropes snapped. Logs rolled down from above. The hunters scattered, their formation broken. Humans leapt from the shadows, striking with clubs, spears, and stolen rifles. The battle was fast and fierce. 2 hunters fell. Another was dragged into the river. The rest fled in shock, their pride shattered, and when they reached safety, they found something carved into one of their fallen helmets. The same human handprint. A message simple and clear. We are no longer prey. Fear began to spread openly in the Varkesh camp. Around the fires, hunters whispered of shadows in the forest, of humans who struck like ghosts. Some refused to enter the woods without larger groups. Others sharpened their blades nervously, watching the darkness. Vora spoke again to Commander Dravak. The humans are not just surviving. They are winning. Every day their strength grows and ours fades. Dravak's jaw tightened. Then we will crush them with force. Send the elites. End this now. The elites were the most skilled Varkesh hunters, armed with heavier weapons and stronger beasts. They entered the forest with pride, certain they would succeed where others failed. But even the elites did not return. In the cave, Mara looked at the survivors gathered around her. Their faces were thinner, their clothes torn, but their eyes were bright with fire. She spoke with calm strength. They came to hunt us. They thought we were weak. They thought we would run until they tired of the game. But we are human. We endure, we fight, and now they fear us. The humans listened in silence, then nodded. Jalen smiled faintly. For the first time since this nightmare began, I feel hope. Ruth whispered. We are more than survivors. We are warriors now. Ben raised his weapon high. Then let's make them remember it. That night the humans struck first. Instead of waiting for hunters, they crept toward the edges of the Varkesh camp. Moving silent as shadows, they cut ropes, stole supplies, and painted human handprints on the hunters' tents. By dawn, the Varkesh awoke to find their camp marked, their pride mocked. Commander Dravak roared in fury, but inside his heart, a seed of fear grew. The humans were not prey anymore. They were something far more dangerous. In the deep forest, Mara stood with her people watching the horizon. She knew the battle was not yet won. The Varkesh still had greater numbers, stronger weapons, and powerful ships. But strength alone was not enough. She whispered to herself, "They hunted us for sport, but the hunt has turned. Now they run and we chase." The shift in power was complete. The hunters were no longer certain of victory, and the humans were no longer prey. The nights of Gorath 9 grew colder, and with them grew the silence inside the Varkesh camp. Once the hunters had filled the dark with laughter, songs of victory, and tales of trophies. Now only the crackling of campfires broke the stillness. The hunters sharpened their blades quietly, their eyes darting to the forest as if shadows themselves had turned against them. The hunt was no longer glory, it was fear. Commander Dravak walked among his hunters, his heavy armor clinking with each step. He could feel the unease like a sickness in the air. Hunters who once boasted of strength now whispered of ghosts in the forest. Some spoke of humans moving unseen, striking like the spirits of Gorath 9 itself. He stopped beside one fire, glaring down at a young hunter who sat with his head bowed. "Why do you tremble?" Dravak demanded. The hunter lifted his eyes, voice shaking. "I heard them. The humans. They do not run anymore. They watch us. I saw eyes in the trees, Commander. Eyes that followed me, waiting for me to fall behind." Dravak's growl echoed through the camp. "They are prey. Do not speak of them as hunters." But the words did not erase the fear. In the forest, Mara and her group moved like shadows. Their numbers had grown. More humans had escaped other hunts and found their way to her. What began as a handful of survivors had become dozens. They were tired, hungry, and wounded, yet their spirits burned brighter with each victory. They had taken weapons, destroyed drones, and struck at the hunters again and again. They knew the terrain now better than the Varkesh. They made it their ally. Mara stood before them one evening, her voice strong though the wind howled through the trees. "The Varkesh came here thinking we were weak," she said, "but now they fear us. Look at what we have done. We took their weapons. We broke their pride. And now they hide in their camp at night." The humans murmured in agreement. Some even smiled. For the first time, hope was stronger than fear. That night, they planned their boldest strike yet. Jalen, holding a repaired scanner he had stolen, pointed to a map he had scratched on a flat stone. "Their camp lies here by the ridge. If we strike from the east, we can break their supply crates. If we strike from the north, we can set fire to their beast pens. They will wake to chaos." Ben's eyes shone. They thought they owned the night. "Now we will show them it belongs to us." Mara nodded. "We leave before moonrise. Move silent. Strike fast. Do not stay longer than a breath. Then vanish back into the forest." The plan was set. When the moons rose high, the humans crept through the mist. Every step was soft, every breath quiet. They moved like shadows across the ridge. In the distance, the Varkesh camp glowed with firelight. At Mara's signal, they spread apart. Jalen slipped to the east, setting his stolen scanner to overload inside a crate of supplies. Ruth and others moved toward the pens where the beasts slept in cages. Ben carried a torch, its small flame hidden under cloth. Moments later, the night exploded with chaos. The crates burst in a blast of sparks, scattering weapons and fire across the camp. The beasts howled as Ruth's group cut open the cages, sending the animals rushing wild through the tents. Ben lit his torch and hurled it onto a banner, the flames racing up into the sky. The Varkesh woke in panic. They stumbled from their tents, weapons half ready, eyes wide with fear. And in the middle of the chaos, the humans painted handprints in ash across the tents and armor, leaving their mark once again. By the time Dravak roared orders, the humans were gone, vanished back into the forest. The camp was in ruins, the beasts scattered, supplies destroyed. The next morning, silence weighed heavy over the camp. The hunters no longer spoke of trophies. They spoke only of shadows, of fire, of human hands that seemed to appear and vanish like smoke. Vora approached Dravak, her voice sharp. "You see it now. They are not prey. They are fighters. They have made this forest their own." Dravak's eyes burned with anger. "We are Varkesh. We will crush them with numbers." But even he felt the doubt in his own words. Numbers meant nothing if hunters refused to march into the forest. The fear was spreading like a sickness. Hunters moved in groups now, never alone. They jumped at the rustle of leaves. They fired at shadows. Their beasts refused to enter certain parts of the forest, growling low and pulling against their chains. At night, strange sounds echoed from the trees, stones clacking together, whistles carried by the wind. They were signals, made by humans to confuse and frighten, but the hunters thought them the cries of spirits. One morning, a hunter awoke to find a handprint painted across his armor in ash. His scream of terror woke the whole camp. No one had seen the humans enter, yet their mark was there. The hunters no longer felt safe, not even in their own tents. Meanwhile, the humans grew bolder. Mara led them in more strikes, burning supply crates, stealing food, capturing weapons. They avoided direct battle, but every attack weakened the hunter's spirit. One evening, Jalen brought a captured communicator to Mara. "I cracked the signal," he said. "We can hear them now. We know their plans before they move." The humans listened as the Varkesh commanders argued. They heard the fear in their voices, the cracks in their pride. Every word filled the humans with new strength. Mara clenched her fists. "They wanted us afraid. Now they are the ones who fear the dark." Commander Dravak tried to rally his hunters. He ordered fires to be kept burning all night. He commanded horns to sound at every hour, hoping to show strength. But even the horns carried no pride anymore. They sounded like cries of desperation. Vora stood beside him. "We are losing, Commander. Not in numbers, but in spirit. They fight with fire in their hearts. Our hunters fight with fear." Dravak's claws scraped the table. "Then I will lead the hunt myself. I will tear this forest apart until no human remains." But even as he spoke, a whisper passed through the camp. "The commander is afraid, too." That night, Mara gathered her people. She looked at their weary faces, at the cuts and bruises, at the hunger in their eyes. Yet she also saw pride there now and courage. "They came here to hunt us for sport," she said. "They thought we would die running. But we have turned their game against them. They are afraid. They whisper in the night. They cannot rest. They cannot trust the shadows. This is our chance. We must keep pushing. Every trap, every strike, every mark we leave makes them weaker. And soon they will learn a truth they will never forget." She raised her hand, fingers spread wide like the mark they had left across the hunter's armor. "Humans are not prey. We are hunters too." The group roared softly in agreement, their voices rising like the wind through the forest. By dawn, the Varkesh hunters marched once more, but not with pride. They marched with fear, every step heavy, every glance sharp. The forest seemed alive with unseen eyes. Every broken branch, every whisper of wind made them raise their weapons. They had once hunted humans for sport. Now they were the ones being hunted. The fear among the predators was complete.